Hey guys, I just want to teach you an exam prep catch up technique. I know that you guys are behind on your studies, learning units, etc. And I had a session with students. I had invited you guys to a session, and a lot of you guys missed out on it. So I thought I would just record a small insert on this exam prep catch up technique because I think a lot of you might need it. So, how do you catch up if you are behind on your learning units? Number one, you have to find 2 hours to study every day. So wherever you find those hours, you need to just make sure that 2 hours you find. And I have found that it either depends on whether you're a morning or an evening person. So if you're a night owl, for instance, you're better off working in the evening. If you're a morning person, you're better off working in the morning. And um, speaking of this, 2 hours to study every day, what I found is that you find the hours in your sleep time. That basically means that, if you wake up at 5 o'clock, chances are you're going to have to start waking up at 4 o'clock just to make that hour, you see, or you sleep late. So it won't be normally in the hours that you're already using. Yeah, if that makes sense. And maybe let me highlight this because sleep time really is the key. Like it's just that sacrifice, that you make for yourself. So you need to then spend 1 hour per learning unit. Remember, we said the first thing was that you have to find 2 hours. Now, if you have 2 hours every day, that means that if you spend 1 hour on each learning unit, you will then cover 2 learning units in a day. And in a week, you will have covered 14 learning units. And that actually too equates to the content of one module. So you could actually spend, if you follow this 1 hour per learning unit, that means you will have consumed one module's learning units in 1 week. So if you have, for example, 4 weeks before the exam, you see that you can actually cover four modules. And then how do you read a learning unit in 1 hour? Because it's easy for me to say, hey, read one learning unit in an hour. Number one, you have to read the learning outcomes. I cannot stress this enough. The learning outcomes are what is key. You have to make sure that you read them and that you understand what they are talking about. Learning outcomes are basically what you need to understand about the module. So you're basically making sure that you understand that. And then you need to focus on the definition terms. So every time they define something, make sure that you read it so that you have a professional way of how it is explained. And then you can also focus on bullet points when you see them and text that is in italics. This could have actually been in italics to prove my point. And then for every heading, read at least 1 or 2 lines until you understand. As a matter of fact, this would have been perfect if I had opened up a textbook, and as I'm going through this, I show you exactly what I mean. So I'm basically opening up a textbook that I use for my module, and I want to show you practically what I'm talking about. So if we have our book here and look here, we've got chapter 1, right? I said that the first thing that you need to learn is the learning outcomes. So it's basically the first page of every chapter. Here we've got the textbook entrepreneurship, right? Chapter 1, entrepreneurship and small, medium, and micro enterprises in perspective. So we see that Cecile Nieuwenhuizen is the author of this book, and here are the learning outcomes. So in other words, what I'm saying is read these, but read to understand. For example, if they're saying define the terms entrepreneur and entrepreneurship, for example, you need to know that entrepreneur is the person who starts the business, and entrepreneurship is, the actual starting of businesses. And the practical of starting a business. So if you know these two, then you know that you understand it. And then you go to the next one, indicate the relationship between entrepreneurship, a small business enterprise, and small business management. So every time you read, you need to make sure that you understand. And then step number 2, I said focus on the definition terms, bullet points, and text that is in italics. So if you look here, for instance, this is in bullet points. I said everything that is in bullet points you must go over. And then you can see there's a definition. Read the definition. They're saying defining entrepreneur and entrepreneurship. Look at how I struggle to define them. So now here's the proper explanation of what it means. So make sure that you read that. I see bullet points. Make sure that you read that. Entrepreneurs can therefore be described as those people who, you see. So that's just a quick way of you reading the textbook. And then for every heading, read 1 or 2 lines until you understand. Okay, so that means that if you see, for instance, here's a heading, introduction, you read 1 or 2 lines until you understand, then you move on. You really don't have to finish it. You go up to 1.1, it's another heading. Again, here, read 1 or 2 lines of what they're saying here. If you find it interesting, keep reading, but if not, move on. The point is for you to cover as much as you can, and then with as little time towards it, and then find out which sections are important for the assignment. And as a matter of fact, maybe I could have put this first, because that's what you need to do. You need to have your assignment on the side. So if there's a learning outcome that you see, it's been asked in the assignment, then you make sure that you read that section more than you read the others. For instance, if the assignment is asking you, to define entrepreneurship, you're gonna stop there, and in that section you're gonna read everything. So and then and like I said, focus on the most on those sections that are going to be in an assignment. So for the most part, you just know what it's all about, and then you can move on. And then another thing that you need to learn is that numeracy modules require daily practice. Numeracy modules are not like theory modules where if you read a paragraph, you understand it and you can move on. With numeracy, you have to practice. Numeracy modules include accounting, economics, and the likes. Wherever you see numbers, those finance modules, they are numeracy modules. And numeracy modules take most of the time. So if, let's say, for instance, you've got 4 hours that you use towards your studies, then probably 2 of those hours you must use on numeracy, because numeracy, you have to practice it every day. I would say one section, if let's say you're doing accounting, right, and you're doing a bank reconciliation, I would say you need to practice how to do a bank reconciliation at least 5 times with 5 different calculations, if that makes sense. So if you have done it 5 times, you now pick up on the nuances of what is required. You cannot just read it once and understand and then you're able to practice it. That is not how accounting works. So please be mindful of that. And then I've mentioned it earlier, sacrifice some sleep. Either study an hour before everyone wakes up or an hour after everyone goes to sleep. Or alternatively, study 2 hours in the morning or 2 hours in the evening. It really just depends on how you are able to work it out. With this one, you really need to consider your daily routine. And then sometimes you also need to find yourself having to separate yourself from your environment. I, for example, if I am at home, it's so easy for me to just switch on my TV, lie on my couch, and just binge watch a series or something. And I can do that. And if I'm binge watching a series, that means I'm taking away time from working. So you do have time. Time is there, that, as much as we say we're busy, we do have time still in our schedules. So it's a matter of just trying to optimize your time rather than waste it. And then I had asked my students for any other advice that they would give. And they mentioned, one student also mentioned that they love skimming and scanning. So in other words, when you read a chapter, you really focus on the biggest. So in other words, focus on the biggest words, the ones that stand out the most. So that would be your headings. And like I said, one, two sentences in there. Yeah, skimming and scanning is really the way in which you're going to cover learning units. You cannot read a whole book. So don't even stress about it. And I think that's the big part. Put away your stress, because now you know you can do it in an hour. And yeah, just go ahead and do it. And then somebody else said proper planning. So that means having a timetable, writing out exactly what you need to do in a day, and then making sure that you stick to that timetable. And that is it. I hope this recording was not too long. All the best with your exams. Thank you.